and welcome back to another episode on my channel. So, today I am going to be doing a first. My mother's birthday is coming up, and as a little extra present to her, I am going to be baking her a cake. It will be my first ever cake that I'll be baking on my own. I have a little baking experience with my dad doing Christmas cakes, but I've never done one on my own. Cake I shall be baking is called Sakortet. It is a German cake, and it is a chocolate cake filled with lots of rich chocolate and even a chocolate icing. I'm thoroughly looking forward to eating it. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode.
So, first things first, clean hands and hair out the way. You don't want any stray hairs in a cake. I've measured and laid out all my ingredients. I have 150 grams of plain chocolate, 125 grams of unsalted butter or margarine, depending on which one you prefer. I've got 125 grams of caster sugar, 125 grams of ground almonds, 4 eggs separated, but we will be using both parts, 50 grams of fresh brown breadcrumbs, 30 grams of apricot jam, which shall be melted, and 200 milliliters of double cream, which will be used for the icing, and an 8-inch cake pan. So the first step is to put the chocolate into a pan of simmering water with a glass bowl in the middle, not a metal one, and to melt it completely so it's nice and smooth. I'm starting by just breaking it up into small chunks, because then it will just melt faster. I'm going to put them all in there. It's important that when you do this, you give this your full attention, otherwise when the chocolate starts to melt, because it will melt fast, you must make sure you don't burn it, otherwise it will create a horrible smell in your kitchen. While the chocolate's melting, because it's in its early stages, I'm just quickly greasing this pan with a little bit of butter all around the sides, and then I'm going to put greaseproof paper on the inside and around the sides, and then I'll grease that paper too. Apologies for the noise in the background, but that is my washing machine going off. Now that that's properly melted, I'm going to turn off the heat, and I'm going to leave that to cool down as it is, and we'll add it to the mixture later. So the next step is to put the butter big pan, such as this. Just use a spoon to get that off. And we are going to cream the butter, which means to mix it up until it's nice and light and squashy and fluffy, basically. Oh, that's a really disgusting noise. So I'm just mashing it all around to make it really pliable. In case you're wondering what the brown is in there, I used the spoon that I used to mix around the chocolate. The little chocolate in the butter won't hurt. And now we should be adding the caster sugar, 125 grams worth, and mixing this all together. My dad, who has much experience in baking cakes, just gave me a tip that I should use a wooden spoon rather than a plastic one because it's too flexible. And this is requiring some hefty mixing in order to make sure that the sugar and butter are mixed properly. Oh, look at that, it's really sticky. I'm just checking the clock. I'm going to have to sort of go a bit faster now. I don't know whether you can hear that or not, but there appears to be thunder going off above us. As I was saying, I'm going to have to speed up a bit because my mum, who this cake is for, is currently at work, she will be back soon, so I've got to get this mixed and in the oven. Now I've got all that mixed in. It's nice and gritty. Whoa. Tell you what, Zeus, when my cake's mixed, can you come down and zap my cake with a bit of lightning? Maybe that'll cook it faster. So the next step is to add everything in. Almonds. Egg yolks. So I'm going to turn the main oven on. I've got to turn it up to 180. And that should steadily start heating up. Ready for my cake. Next we add the breadcrumbs. And I made the breadcrumbs. And I should point out that they are brown breadcrumbs. By cutting out a slice of bread, I put it in the blender over there. Whisked it around for about a minute and came up with this lovely fluffy mass of shredded bread. So this being a chocolate cake, it's not looking very chocolatey. So now we have to add the chocolate. So I'm just adding this very gently. You know, it's at times like this that I'm just adding this together very gently. You know, it's at times like this when I really wish I had a head mount for my GoPro. I am having to use every amount of mental power I have to restrain myself from licking this bowl right now. I am a sucker for melted chocolate. To lick or not to lick? That is a very good question. So now that's all in. I'm going to give that thorough mixing round. I'm not going to waste a single bit of that chocolate. I did use, it does say in the recipe to use plain chocolate. However, unfortunately I couldn't find any, and I have so much chocolate already that I used green and black Mayo Gold, which has a spicy taste to it, which is really sort of added to it. I think it tastes better with a slightly richer flavour. But the choice is down to you whether you want to follow the recipe to the letter or experiment a little bit. So that's really starting to look like a cake mix now, but we're not quite done yet. So just taking a bowl I was using earlier that I used to measure out the sugar, I'm going to take my egg whites and I'm going to beat them until they're stiff. I'm not quite certain what stiff means, but I'm just going to keep whisking and see if I find out. Okay, so I've whisked them for a good while and they've gone all fluffy and bubbly at the very least. I am sort of feeling a bit more resistance now, so they feel a bit thicker. I'm going to add half the mixture now. I'm going to mix that in, or fold as the technical term is. I'm going to pull the other half in. And fold again. I feel like doing the cha-cha-cha. Cha-cha real smooth. So that really looks like a cake mix now, and all that's left to do is to put it in this lovely greased tin. Now I had to go with an 8-inch one because I didn't have a 9-inch tin, and I just hope it all sort of fits in. And that when it rises it doesn't go over the top. Oh, look at that. My favourite bit about baking whenever I used to help was always smoothing it out at the end. So all this needs to do now is go in the oven and bake for 40 to 45 minutes on a temperature of 180. Yo Zeus, do you think you could give me a hand and zap this cake for me? Thanks! So while the cake is baking, I am going to get on with the icing. 198, 200 grams of chocolate. That is a lot of chocolate. So this is where the cream will come into play. Reusing the bowl I had earlier, I'm heating it up again, bringing the water to a simmer, not a boil. And I am adding the chocolate to it. Perhaps I'll break that one up a bit. And as that melts, I shall add the cream to it and blend the two together, and that will be our icing for the cake. Oh. And now I add the double cream, and the chocolate will melt with the cream and blend perfectly together. And this is what the mixed cream and chocolate should look like. Ready to smear on the cake. So the next step before we add the icing would be to heat up this apricot jam in the microwave and then put it over the top. It gives it just a nice sort of fruity flavour in between the layers of icing and the cake. I'm just going to give that a blast for 20 seconds, and it's 30 grams apricot jam. And actually that's enough, and I'm going to stop that at 15 seconds. Ooh, boiled that a bit too much. It'll do lovely as a glaze though. So I have a brush here, and I'm just going to dip this in and glaze over the top gently. Now, even though I'm only glazing on the top of the cake, I'm going to be putting the icing all around the sides as well as on top of it, but the jam just goes on top. So that's now all done, and all I have left to do is the icing. And what I'm going to do, stop it, as I'm going to pour this straight over the top. And it doesn't matter if it goes on here because this is a turntable, which will allow me to go all around the sides really easily. But you can easily just use a plate if you want, if you don't have a turntable. Now I just tested that to make sure that it wasn't hot, because you're supposed to leave this to cool down for a few minutes. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's cold or whether it's warm, but the book specifies it shouldn't be hot. I'm just going to do this really, really gently. Because it's about to splurge over the side. Yeah, it's doing it on the bowl. Oh god, this is like trying to balance too many things at once. Okay, apart from that little splurge on the side, I think we're good. Just going to gently spread that around using this spatula. I might have made a little bit too much here, but I can always eat that afterwards. I'm just going to let that set now, and when it's dried, hopefully it should leave it with a shiny coat of icing.
So here is the finished cake, all shiny and ready to be eaten. But I've got to stop myself from eating it because I've got to wait until Monday, where I'm going to present this covered in candles and decorations for her birthday. So I hope I can keep it a secret until then. Shh.
So it's the day of my mother's birthday and I'm having to be quiet because she's in the next room. But here is the cake, decorated in all its lavishness. These are crystallized petals, which are something I made earlier, which are just flower petals dipped in egg whites and coated in sugar and allowed to dry. Makes them perfectly edible and rather a pretty simple adornment to each cake. I've got it covered in candles, which are ready to light. All I need now is the birthday girl.
Thank God she's not any older. You ready?
Yes. Here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear mum. Happy birthday to you. Hey,
well, that's got your own back after all the times I've done it to you. All of you.
Make a wish.
Oh, difficult. I wish for lots more days like this.
Well, that's a nice one, yes.
Oh, I should take the photo when they were lit. Oh,
Mum, we've got it on video.
That's lovely.
You want to know the best part about that?
Go on then.
I made that cake myself.
Really? Wow. What, the chocolate and all?
Chocolate and all,
Goodness me.
icing, the petals, decoration.
Yeah,
all myself.
grind all the cocoa beans, the works.
It's a sacred pet cake.
I did wonder why. Sasha taught. I did wonder why there was an awful lot of sugar all over the kitchen this morning.
I have somebody that does that when he fills the sugar bowl.
From the crystallised petals,
Yes,
obviously.
yes.
So all that stuff yesterday, but I got to go home. I got to do some vlogging.
I do still.
Thank you. It's a lovely birthday.
And that is how you make a secret birthday cake.